Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you're dialing in from. As you dial in today, if you'd like to drop in the chat where you're calling from so we can say hello. We're excited to see you all here today. Welcome in. Today is an exciting day because you're going to be the first to get a little preview of insights into Remake's new fashion accountability report, which I know we all look forward to as an excellent tool. Okay, we've got some guests calling from LA, from Istanbul, from New York City, London, Boston, Utah, New Jersey, Mexico. Hello to our global community. Hi in Miami and London. So nice to see you all here today. You're in for a very exciting conversation. For any of you who are new to Remake or our calls, this monthly community call is an opportunity to know what's going on at Remake, to see our research, to campaign with us, to get insights into our policy work in action, and to ask any questions you have or set collective intentions to, of course, do what we are all here to do, which is center fair wages and climate justice in fashion. And as I mentioned, today is a special day because since 2016, actually, Remake has been evaluating the world's top fashion brands on their promises to people and planet. And today we're going to be offering a sneak peek into that latest research of how fashion brands fared in 2023. So one of the aims of this report, the Remake Fashion Accountability Report, is to equip you, our community, many of whom work in sustainability functions at brands or are change makers campaigning to make a difference. We want you to be able to have a blueprint that you can work off of to measure what matters and drive intentional dialogues in whatever your community space is. Just a little bit of context on this report if you are joining us for the first time and you're not familiar with past Remake fashion accountability reports. We score fashion's largest companies on their actions rather than on their promises alone. And the reason that we do this is because we are trying to push fashion's biggest brands toward creating safe, equitable jobs of dignity and reducing their climate impact. Now, we're heartened to say that of the brands we analyze, 25 companies, up from 8 companies in just the year prior, actually engaged with us on this report, talked to us about their score and their blueprint and their roadmap forward. And this is some guidance that every company receives before we put this score and this report into the public domain. So that's just a little bit of background on the context of the Fashion Accountability Report. We are actually very lucky today to have some incredible thought leaders here with us to share their reflections on our report. And we hope that, this will be more than just sharing the findings. We want you to be in conversation with us as always. It's so nice to see folks continuing to join in the chat and saying where they're from Amsterdam to Bushwick to Toronto to Dubai. It's so wonderful to have you. So let's get started, and I will bring up our wonderful panelists. First, we are thrilled to introduce you to Hakan. I want to say Dr. Hakan, but you always correct me to refer to you as Hakan, who is an internationally experienced award-winning researcher, educator, and advocate who has long shone a light on the intersection of people and planet. And we are really, really excited to share with you all that he is Remake's newest board member joining us. So welcome. We're excited to have you today. We are also joined by journalist Alden Wicker, who is an award-winning journalist and the author of one of our recent book club books, some of you may remember, called To Die For: How Toxic Fashion is Making Us Sick and How We Can Fight Back. And Alden is actually the lead writer on this year's report. So we're excited to have them both joining us and sharing their insights. You'll also get to hear a little bit from Becca, who is our senior accountability manager and works day in and day out on putting this report together, so can share some additional context about it as well. Let's get started. As I mentioned, you are the first to get these insights this year. The report is due out at the end of February, and we will, of course, be excited to share it with you far and wide. But today we want to just unpack some of the findings, lift up any innovation, and make clear where progress remains slow, because I'm sure you're anticipating the fact that progress does remain slow in the industry. Hakan, let's start with you. Based on your readings of the report, what are some of the key themes and solutions that came up for you?
Sure. Thank you very much, Emily. I'm really happy to be here. Hi, everyone. So nice to meet you all, and thank you very much for having me. So actually, Emily, you said something so important. You said conversation. I think this is a very important moment for us to create inclusive social dialogues, and that's why we are here, because we have more questions than the answers, and time is up. We really need to bring together climate justice with social justice. And fashion is an industry, is a sector in which we are just having millions of people that are treated unfairly. So time is up. We have to change this discourse. But to start with, and the report is great. So congratulations, everyone involved. I just saw it and it is really exciting. What I liked about it is actually about systemic change. It is about radical change. We are not talking about incremental actions. We are really talking about radical change. And I want to go a little bit deeper. And please feel free to ask any questions if I am vague. But actually, first and foremost, we have to challenge the mindset in the fashion sector. The fashion as a system is still driven by the growth of logic. We are actually talking about just financial indicators because the system is driven by economic development, industries, and unfortunately, this economy of scale. At the end, supply chains become the outcome that are dispersed, complex, and fragmented all over the world. Supply chains are not the problems. Suppliers or the workers are not the problems. They are just the outcome of this business logic, which is driven by the growth. And let's go deeper. Unfortunately, we are still trying to measure sustainability as a just arm's length approach type of way. So in a way, we are still not understanding that financial indicators cannot measure a system or sustainability. Why do I say this? Because unfortunately, when we approach sustainability as a risk mitigation tool, all of these environmental and social problems that you unpacked in the report become the reality. How can we change this? As you point out in the report, we need to establish supply chains as social ecological systems. We cannot just approach supply chains as static entities. We are really in need of creating this mindset shift. And also, what I want to say is, unfortunately, because we fail to frame the issue, we also create wrong solutions. We are creating just top-down decision-making, industry-endorsed standardized tools, and one-size-fits-all solutions. And look where we are. We really need to change the system because we understand one thing. Everything is context-specific. But unfortunately, power imbalance is the biggest impeder in the fashion system, and we don't create inclusive social dialogues. Where are the workers in these conversations? Where are the suppliers in which we are just talking about sustainability for more than a decade? But actually, in reality, we are just creating solutions that works for the power holder, not for the many in the industry. Going back to your question, to me, what is talking as the solution, I have to say responsible purchasing. We cannot just separate purchasing and exact financial practices from the problem itself. It is actually the main problem. We cannot expect suppliers or anyone to be sustainable if we don't provide financial incentives. Let's pay the fair price. Let's talk about the real problem in the room. Two things: purchasing practices and production volumes. And this brings me to the main point, which is decarbonization. Climate change is real. We have to change the way we do things. But how can we decarbonize fashion supply chains? By putting the right tools and right incentives in the right place. And let's talk about decarbonization, which is also a great point in the report, which I want to go deeper. But just I will say this. Decarbonization must be understood as a very important topic, yet it is complicated. Everything is context specific. We cannot talk about decarbonization as if it is just one thing that everyone can adopt. It is not a set of solutions. We have to be really specific about data, volumes, production volumes, and also supplier locations. So in a way, I will tell you a really big joke. Fashion industry is delusional when it comes to net zero. we are conducting research, and what we are seeing is emission per apparel will increase even if we have goals about net zero. Why? Because we don't reduce the number of outcomes, number of outputs we are creating. So this is the basic physics, input versus output. We have to be really clear about what we are trying to achieve, because decarbonization is not about just using renewable energy. It is about creating a system with system level thinking, whereby the way you do things will enable you to reduce your impact in the right way. So in a way, overproduction and purchasing practices are the two main things that I want to highlight. And this is linking everything back to climate justice and social justice. I'm a chatterbox, so just cut me off because I just keep talking. So sorry, but thank you.
Oh, this is wonderful. It's a really great framing for the report because, as we say, we score these fashion brands, but as you will see in the report, everything has context and it's all about how we deal with the dual problems of climate justice and human rights and good jobs with dignity. And so we hope that you will see those two things intertwined in our report this year. Becca, who I mentioned, works very closely on the Remake report, is also here to give you some context on it as well. Remake score sheets in the Fashion Accountability Report are intended to be used by these companies that we analyze as a roadmap to drive their discourse and progress. Like Hakan said, sometimes we feel that the fashion industry is not measuring what matters or making progress toward what matters, and we hope that these roadmaps will drive them in that direction more clearly. Becca, can you speak to our brand engagement process and how it has helped shape companies' internal understandings and conversations about that linkage between human rights and environmental sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Dr. Hakan. Remake is very intentional about the way that it engages with companies throughout our report process. It's super important to us that we give everyone advance notice of our publishing schedule, as well as the opportunity to review individual score sheets before we ourselves put any public information in the public domain. And we also always offer companies the opportunity to have a call with our advocacy team. Again, not only to go over their individual scores or progress towards their various sustainability targets, but to discuss the uses of our criteria more broadly. And to both your and Dr. Hakan's points, these conversations, really the intent behind them is to allow companies to learn more about these intersections, right, between human rights and environmental justice, and how they can really start to think about inclusive and equitable transitions to a more sustainable fashion system. We really encourage companies to think about how they can use this knowledge to evolve the conversations that they're having internally, to guide internal priorities and resource distribution related to the holistic goals outlined in our score sheet and our report. And how can companies start to bring balance to the power structures in fashion, which will be absolutely necessary if we are to meet our broad industry goals in a way that's fair for all, through fairer contracts, for example. And so, yeah, having these conversations with brands is really insightful, and yeah, just to try and get them to start asking better questions within their companies. These conversations are also really important and helpful for us as an organization. We find that they not only help to build trust between Remake and fashion companies, but to consistently involve our own internal reporting methodologies. And we are always grateful for the opportunity to consistently learn from fashion brands and retailers as well, both about where they're making headway and where they may be facing roadblocks. This is sort of about like making change together. How can we work together as different stakeholders within the industry? And as you mentioned, this year we had 25 brands engage in this process with us, which is 8 more than last year, and that's really exciting. Many of these companies are motivated to talk to us because they want to increase their scores. And this is often the outcomes of such engagement. But more importantly, brands are forced to rethink how they are communicating their labor and environmental disclosures. I think we're starting to see a de-siloing of these two sort of pillars and how they relate to each other. And so if you are working within a brand, we really look forward to you getting stuck into this report, and we hope that it helps you to start having these important conversations and asking important questions within your individual teams and companies more broadly. And we absolutely welcome any insight into how you've used these tools, as well as any feedback you may have about how we can make this information more accessible to industry insiders like you to make practical use of. Thank you.
Thank you all. I have a question here for the group, which I've dropped in the chat for anyone maybe who's working inside the fashion system. What kind of fashion system do you want to work in? I hear early responses being a circular one, giving voice to all employees. I think that's great. A fashion system that's without any guilt or exploitation or manipulation. These are all wonderful insights. And thank you, Becca, also for sharing how in this process we do engage with the brands who are analyzed in the report. We think it's an important part of the process. And it's really, great to hear that more brands are interested in having some of those strategic conversations. Our final guest for the panel today is journalist Alden Wicker. We're excited to hear from you, Alden. I want to start kind of with this, what kind of fashion system do you want to work in question that folks are answering in the chat as well. Yourself, as well as journalists like Bella Webb, have recently written about burnout within the fashion industry and how those who are trying to do good within the fashion ecosystem are getting frustrated with the industry's stalled progress on climate and treatment of people who lack the power in the industry. So I'm interested to know, as you looked at this year's report data, why do you think that fashion is missing out here? The industry is missing out on retaining top talent. As you note in the report, this historically sparkling and seductive industry has given way to one of abuse, toxicity, and greed. Why do you think progress has stalled and people are feeling this way?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Emily. And I'm really excited to share some of the insights from the report. Yeah, I mean, everybody's feeling it. I think even people who don't work in the fashion industry. I was just having a meal with a friend, and we were talking about, you hear about the hollowing out of the middle class. There's a hollowing out of the fashion industry as well. You either have extremely overpriced luxury products like a $1,500 Canada Goose puffy coat, or you have as cheaply made as possible clothing that falls apart and is engineered in a way to increase the margins of fashion companies, but doesn't actually serve the customer. By coincidence, I happen to be wearing a St. James shirt, and St. James is a worker-owned heritage brand from France. And I think what I love about this shirt and that brand is that they're making a product that they're proud of. From the physicality of it, of like, it's a good quality shirt. We want to make sure people enjoy it, providing repair, and also being proud of all of the hands that it touches on its way to you, right? And being proud of the materials and the heritage and its history, and also where it's going in the future. And I think a lot of people now who work in the fashion industry, like in other industries that are exploitative, at least you get paid for like checking your morals at the door, right? And fashion doesn't even have that going for it. At this point, some of the responses I got from a call out in my newsletter around like nobody wants to work in this industry anymore, I got like 20 responses from people who are saying like, I really care deeply about fashion as a concept, about creating things that people love, about, being on the vanguard of something, about creating things that make people feel beautiful. I mean, everybody wants to feel good in what they're wearing, both physically and emotionally, and expressing themselves. And the fashion industry isn't doing that anymore. It's creating things that are engineered for profit margins. And it goes back to what we've been talking about already, which is this system that is tilted towards growth. I think maybe a lot of you saw that the H&M CEO stepped down late last week. She came up through sustainability. She stepped aside. The new CEO today has said that he's going to focus on making H&M faster. And that's because the investors were getting, like, their stock price was down because they're not making as much, selling as much stuff. So it's all about more sales, more margin, bigger margins, more stuff all the time. And companies that don't align with that are punished and put out of business. I have so many beautiful things that I'll never be able to replace when they wear out finally, because those brands are gone, because they invested so much in making a high quality product, paying fair wages throughout the supply chain, using good materials, really caring about where their product came from and where it's going. And that is very, very hard to do today in the system we have. So this report, looking at the stagnation, looking at where it's going and like where companies are stalling out, it really comes down to the inability for one company to break out of this system and make a difference without the bottom level being brought up through legislation, through international binding agreements, like the Fire and Safety Accord, or other potential agreements like the EU's considering like due diligence and all of these different things, and sustainability and anti-greenwashing. And that's really exciting because, yeah, it's just in the system that we have, companies are actually punished by investors who hold the power when they try to slow down a little bit, when they try to do things better, or they're just punished by the broader market in general because, you know, people pay for logos or they don't want to pay anything. So it's a rather cynical view, but it's not just cynical. It's actually a clarification of where we need to go and what we need to focus on, because the past decade has been an amazing experiment to see, like, okay, can we convince corporations to do well by doing good? And a lot of companies have given it their best shot, and the ones who are trying the hardest are saying, excuse me, can we have some legislation here? This isn't fair. This isn't fair that Shein can come in and not pay tariffs on their packages and create toxic, cheap products and scoop up, customers who don't know better, or like have other priorities. So yeah, it's definitely a systemic issue that needs to be addressed on a systemic level.
Thank you. Lots of great reflections and questions coming in the chat, and I am watching those for our Q&A section. Excellent points, Alden, as one of our commenters says in the chat. So we've laid out some of the problems, which I'm sure many of you are aware of or have felt yourselves in the work that you do. I'd like to start to steer us now towards solutions. Hakan, in this year's report, can you help us to unpack some of the examples where we could be directing energy in order to turn this big unwieldy ship, and give us some direction for where we could focus our work?
Thank you, Emily. Sure, I will do my best. This is a systemic change, and we are all responsible and together in this. But where I want to start is actually, I want to start from some social constructs, such as empathy and love. I will say something really basic. I come from a low-income family, which I am so proud of, and my mother was a garment worker. So I know the system quite well, even from my childhood. But I always used to have clothing that I used to love, that I used to use all the time. So how have we ended up here where we don't love anything anymore, even when we don't respect anyone anymore? So empathy and love are two important guiding principles. And in fact, I will tell you one thing. I am a social scientist, so I look at theories and I play with theories. When we look at the indigenous theories, and when we look at their ontological frameworks, we understand one thing. They are actually creating a harmony between living and non-living the materials, resources. At the end, sustainability becomes an outcome. So to create a system whereby everything can flourish, we have to actually change the input. We have to change the way we do things. Fashion fails to understand how to frame the issue because we are not understanding the difference between objective and outcome. Decarbonization or just transition cannot become the objectives per se. They are the outcomes. If we change the way we do things, they will become organic outcomes, whereby we can really enable people to flourish. So now I want to bring this to conversation to the just transition concept. So decarbonization is important, is vital, but in the fashion system, which is really people dependent, we need to make sure supply chains will be decarbonized. How? We need to really listen to the people in the supply chains. Tier 1 is so different than Tier 2 and Tier 3, but also every location is so different. We can't even talk about one country with one solution. We have to be really context specific. When I am in the field and I do lots of ethnographic research, I can tell you one thing: suppliers, workers, and lower tier players, they have the solutions. They have ideas. Why don't we listen to them? Why we don't learn from them? Actually, the solutions are there. The problem is microphone is never actually just brought to that level. So we need to understand one thing. We have to create social dialogues if we really want to change the business and the mindset. And this brings me to the importance of just transition. Let's do one thing. Let's not hijack constructs any longer. We destroy the concept of sustainability. We hijacked circularity in the context of fashion. Let's not do the same thing for just transition. Let's understand things in a really right way. Let's let the people that have knowledge talk and speak and bring solutions, and then we can frame certain solutions or pathways. This is a long-term structure. We need to plan things in this long-term thinking, for which we really need to create inclusive dialogues. Technology will not save us. And Alden made a reference to Shein. Exactly. Let's look at the Shein's business model based on AI, based on technology. If you think of it, innovation is a tool. What must change is the behavior and the culture. You can create technology, but if you don't change the behavior in an ethical way, that technology can create a disaster, which we are already living in. So technological solutions such as renewables, or using electricity, or changing thermal energy with renewables, these are nice, but we cannot separate this from behavioral change. And everything brings me back to the point of overproduction. We really need to create durable and more sustainable products. Also, design teams, suppliers, no one is happy with the system, because at the end, just a bunch of people become really rich and more powerful at the expense of everyone else. So let's play with the system to really challenge it from within. And I'm hopeful. I am really hopeful these conversations will help us, but we have a long way to go. But let's stay together to make sure we are creating and then orchestrating financial, technical, and emotional resources in the right way with the right people. Thank you.
Thank you. What an excellent framing for how we can think about solutions and who is at the table even for these conversations about solutions. Lots of claps happening in the chat. Folks, we've had some wonderful questions come in from the chat as well. So I would like to pose some of those to our panelists today. One of the questions that has come up is for the Remake Accountability Report team, and this is about the process of how brands engage with us. Of the 25 brands that engaged in that road mapping process, to the extent that we're able to speak to it, are there any similarities or themes in those conversations that have been had with brands? What are the takeaways? Have the conversations been productive? Becca, I feel like you're well suited to answer this.
Thank you. I love this question. And I think this is something that I think Julie and Alexa can speak to as well. We have had so many conversations with brands this year, and the feeling that we come out with is that there are so many well-meaning individuals within these companies who really care about these issues and who really want to do the best that they can. I think to Alden's point there's a sort of fatigue because people are doing the best that they can. And so I think what we're trying to do is like, when you know better, you do better. And so we're just trying to instigate some of these more, I guess, radical conversations. so that we can empower these people with like knowledge and the tools to then go and ask better questions within their own companies, to de-silo teams within companies. We've had so many conversations, and you know, teams within companies aren't speaking to each other. They have conflicting goals. You have social compliance teams who need to ensure that labor standards are met, but then you have like buying and merchandising teams who just, it's all about cost and like crunching numbers. And so yeah, like there are amazing people within these teams who just need to start to de-silo and have better conversations within their companies. And it makes us very hopeful, because, you know, so often we villainize these big companies, and as corporations, they should be villainized in a way. But, you know, like Dr. Hakan said, there are people at the center of all of this. And so to me, that's really encouraging, and it gives me hope.
Thank you. Another question, how do we reshape the general mentality of entitlement that we all deserve massive cheap hauls of clothing at the click of a button? Any one of our panelists can jump in on this one. We also had another question come in. Do we think that the tools that shoppers currently have are sufficient? Are there ways that we can help them to make better decisions in the future? Anyone can feel free to jump in here.
Sure, I can take that one. So are the tools that we have sufficient? No, they're not. There are tools at our disposal, but I actually would challenge a little bit the premise of that question, which puts the responsibility back on the shopper to make a right choice when fashion is such a complex product. I've seen a lot of startups come and go that are like, we're just going to put all the information about this one thing on a label. And then like once people are like an app or something, and like once people have all of the information, then they can make the right choice. And like, oh my God, what an overwhelming shopping experience. Like, do you get the like organic cotton t-shirt that was made in North Carolina, or the like non like Okotex certified cotton t-shirt that was made in India? And like where do you, I mean, it is so complex, and you need a degree in sociology, in, you know, international development, toxicology, chemistry, economics, like all of these different things to even begin to wrap your head around all of the impacts of one garment. And like to choose the right one is just an impossible task. I will say that, like, you know, I think we've had an over-reliance on private certifications up until now, one by one. And I don't enjoy doing this, but like I've had to dismantle the premise behind every single one of those certifications one by one. It was like, oh, this organic cotton is not actually grown organically. And like, you know, this certification like isn't actually that transparent. And like, because they're all private certifications, their ultimate client is not you, it is the brand. So the brand pays for all of the things, or they make the supplier pay for all of that. And then the inspectors are incentivized to give the supplier and the brand the answer that they want to hear. So that whole social audit system is not working. Right. And then because the brand and the supplier are paying for that, all of that is like private information, right? So you can't actually see any information that comes out of it if nobody wants you to see it. And there's all this fraud, and like it's like these private certification systems are not working, and yet they're the best thing we have as shoppers to look at the variety of different things that we care about. But so that's like kind of an impossible situation that we're being put in, where it's like, if it's very tiring to be like, you know, I think we all go through this journey where we're like, we find out that there's child labor in chocolate. And so we're like, I'm never buying Reese's peanut butter cups again. And then you find out that like, this is happening over here in this supply chain and this, and then you're like, oh wait, organic's fraudulent. Like, okay, what do I buy now? And like, it's just like, it gets really overwhelming and stressful and anxiety inducing. And that's why I keep pulling it back to like us not being consumers, but us being citizens. And, thinking about ourselves also as workers in an entire global system where like the impact, like what's happening in these garment making countries is also impacting us over here, right? Like our communities are being economically undercut by the exploitation of garment workers. The chemicals used in these factories are ending up on our clothing and affecting us over here. And so when I talk to people about like what you can do, there's one, like this report is great because it's not just black and white thinking. It's not just like, well, everybody should just do this or like, pie in the sky. It's very precision. And so that you can look at, if you're working in a company, you just like, instead of complaining, right, and saying like, oh God, I hate working for this company, it's so toxic, I feel so bad, you can say like, if this company did this exact thing the way that these companies over here are doing, like Puma is doing it, or like Everlane or whatever is doing it, like that's possible, we could do this exact thing, and like why don't we do this thing? It's like giving solutions instead of just like complaining about everything, I think is really empowering for people. And so those are the kind of tools that I really like, is precise information, and also being the tools that are available to a citizen to say like, you can call your representative, your state representative, your local representative, and say, I want you to focus on like this one particular issue and I care really deeply about this. Like that, it can be way more empowering and way more engaged and feel a lot better than trying to choose or shop your way out of the problem, which can feel completely overwhelming. This phrase, every dollar you spend is a vote for the world you want to see. Every vote that you make, every call that you make, every time you volunteer, that is a vote for the world you want to see. Spending your money is, we're all doing the best we can.
Absolutely. Becca dropped in the chat something that I was just about to say, call your representatives today and urge them to co-sponsor the Federal Fabric Act, for example. We hope ultimately that Remake and being here and having these conversations can be your guide toward these more systemic solutions for how to make this kind of change that we've discussed here on the call today. Because when we overfocus on the consumer choices aspect, it reminds us that we're not going after that systemic change that Hakan had framed for us so nicely on this call. Thank you all so much for your very thoughtful responses. I'm very excited for you all to get to read the full version of the Fashion Accountability Report. As I said, it will be out later at the end of the month. We will be splashing it out far and wide, but Remake ambassadors, of course, do watch the Remake Ambassador Slack because we're there to share the report, but also to answer any questions you have about that tool. If you do have specific questions about how you can use the accountability score sheets or the report as a tool, perhaps in your workplace or your brand, or how you're thinking about solutions, please feel free to get in contact with Becca or members of our team about that. I'm now going to ask everyone to please give our wonderful panelists a round of applause and a thank you, big Remake thank you for being here. And then call up my colleague, Allison, who is here to share with you some exciting news about what's ahead at Remake for the month ahead. Thanks, Allison.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Dr. Hakan and Alden, for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. Oh, perfect. Like I said, hi, everyone. Happy February. Before I share what's coming down our pipeline for this month, I wanted to give a huge shout out to our ambassador of the month, Rosie May. She's a sustainable swimwear designer, textile artist, and vintage fashion activist based in NYC, and has been an ambassador and a No New Clothes Challenge taker since 2020. So she's been with us for quite a while, making change in New York. She's an amazing organizer in New York and has helped our hub here grow exponentially over the past few years, working along with community organizers Holly and Colleen. And not only does she help recruit ambassadors, she also works with not only Remake, but groups like Reclipped, Butterfly Club, and Climate Cafe to host a bunch of different community events, much like the one that will be happening tomorrow in New York, which will be a Valentine's making event where she will be launching her newest endeavor, Rosie's Magazines. And Rosie, I know you're here, so if you want to drop and plug your new website, your new Instagram, plug it in the chat. Rosie, we are so thankful for your presence and your passion and your positivity in this movement. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Next up, we have 2 great virtual events coming up this month. The first one will be February 22nd. We will be doing an ambassador social meetup. It'll be open to all ambassadors, but this is a really great opportunity if you're looking for more ways to get involved or more people to meet in the community, especially if you're a new ambassador. And then the last week of the month, on February 27th, we will be hosting a program around Hosting Events 101. We'll be looking at the Ambassador Resource Drive, hear from current community members who host events in person and virtually, and brainstorming new event ideas. So feel free to come over to either of these ones. They'll be really good, really casual to like meet other people and kind of just brainstorm on how to get more involved in Remake's work. You can find both of these events and a bunch more like the Sustainable Valentine's Making event happening on Wednesday in New York on the Ambassador Hub. And if you have any questions at all about the Ambassador Hub, about the Slack channel, or how you can get more involved in general, shoot an email over to ambassador@remake.world. Thank you all again for being here, and I'm going to pass it on over to Julie to share a little bit more about the Remake Fashion Certificate.
Hi, everyone. This has been a wonderful conversation, Dr. Hakan and Alden. Thank you so much. I'm Julie Masterigo, and I am the Director of Leadership Development at Remake, and I oversee the Remake Fashion Certificate, a professional level resource for ambassadors and the wider community to learn about the fashion industry's impact, starting with the maker. I spent my career in apparel design and traveled to many of the facilities that produce clothing, but these places are mostly out of sight to the public, and most of the people, in fact, that work in the industry never have the opportunity to see where their actual items are made. Remake made a series of films to give voice to the garment makers, who are mostly women in many parts of our clothing industry. And just really reflecting on things that both Dr. Hakan and Alden said. I loved when Alden said, like, reconsidering ourselves that we're not consumers, but we're workers in this entire global system. It's important to really center the garment worker and as a side by side with women's empowerment issues, which is how Remake looks at the industry. The Remake certificate has been assembled from this perspective, extending the peer-to-peer engagement that we have within the Remake community into a peer-engaged learning community. And with support from the Martini Education and Opportunity Trust, the Remake Fashion Certificate is providing a curated journey, starting with the makers, that's introducing core design thinking principles for asking better questions. And to Dr. Hakan's point, we really need system thinking to address the power imbalance. So through participation in the course, I have to say it actually gets better. Just for example, Richa Jha, who was a summer participant, was a great example of utilizing the course, both as a way to engage with the information that's contained in it, but also as a starting place for further exploration of the additional resources that both are included there for your taking, and what all of the individuals within the course are sharing with each other. It really is this place to explore like insights, encourage idea sharing, and deepen connections within a global community of learners, and just continue to build on these really important, thoughtful conversations that can start in these groups where giving yourselves confidence to like have them on the outside. So today, That was a mouthful. We're here to celebrate 5 graduates who are celebrating, that we'd like to celebrate today, who have really shared inside the course, inspired and motivated each other to really understand their own power and their collective power. So today we just want to say great job to Leandra Nawej, Lucy Walter, Nellie Garcia, Samantha Robinson, and Talia Concepcion. Thank you so much for participating in these really inclusive dialogues. And it's like these conversations are really going to help us address like where the roadblocks are and put together the kind of conversations like in the companies where we work, in the communities where we live, that will help move the industry forward. So if anyone's interested in learning more, you can contact me directly, and also on the hub, it's posted where you can sign up to get the details. So congrats and thank you. The course gets better because of all of you.
Wonderful. Congratulations to to all of our graduates. I'm seeing some past rounds of graduates in the chat as well too, who are saying taking the certificate was a really eye-opening experience, a wonderful experience. So we hope that many more of you will participate in the future. I'm dropping in the sign-up form if you'd like to sign up to take part in the fashion certificate. This is provided entirely free to you as a Remake ambassador. And please do feel free to reach out to Julie on our ambassador Slack channels or otherwise if you have questions about the program. All right, next I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Tessa. Tessa, take it away.
Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you so much also to our panelists. I know we're all so grateful, as so many have said in the chat and throughout our team, for your insight and for any involvement that you've had in this report and sort of synthesizing this for our community. It means so much. And with that, I just want to give a quick introduction for those who I haven't connected with yet. My name is Tessa. I'm Remake's development manager. So I get to help with really amplifying our impact as an organization and seeing ways that we can grow that all together. With that being said, again, congratulations to all the certificate graduates as well. We have so much exciting things coming down the pipeline at Remake. And in particular, with the focus of this call today being around our accountability report, I wanted to highlight that there are so many ways to grow our impact and expand the reach of that accountability report by supporting Remake as an organization. And so I was really lucky enough to be able to witness firsthand some of that hard work. I get to work alongside these incredible folks on our team that built the accountability report, and I saw them combing through those reports, sometimes hundreds of pages, to really build and synthesize all those points to make it digestible for our community, for the industry, and to accelerate the pace at which we hold those brands accountable to real change. And so with that being said, I really want to acknowledge that all that hard work can really be amplified if you are able to even jump in just a little bit with a little monthly donation or support our work through a fundraising event. There's so many different ways to amplify that reach, but all of your support can really go into growing that industry reach, expanding our public education through our social media, through our programming, and empowering all of the ambassadors on this call and all of our ambassadors globally to really take action with it. You know, there's a lot of manpower behind this work, and there's so many ways we want this to reach far and wide now that we're almost ready to launch. So anything that you can do to offer to support. Allison, if you want to jump to the next slide for me. One of the best ways to do that, especially if you're an ambassador and you know, I want to get involved, maybe I don't have a lot of time, I'm busy, but becoming something like a gem, which is giving every month to Remake, is a really easy way to just guarantee that you're going to be making an impact and that you're going to be growing that reach of this report and growing the educational resources that we provide to our community through this work. So if you're able to even give maybe $5, something you spend on a coffee, $10, whatever it is a month, I'll drop in the chat here the link to become a gem. But there are so many other ways to join our work. So whatever's accessible to you, if it's becoming a gem, if you have even greater giving capacity or know someone who does, I also encourage you to connect with me. There are so many opportunities to expand this work beyond the accountability report. And as many of you know, there's so much we do in tandem to really make systemic change in this industry together. So if you want to get connected, feel free to reach out to me. But as always, no matter how it's accessible to you, we're so grateful for the ways that you each engage in this work and power this movement ongoing, because it really comes from each and every one of you to both drive the reach of our work, but also to, you know, make sure that we're identifying the needs and amplifying the voices of our garment workers along the way. So thank you for everything you've done to make that work possible. And I'm going to pass it back to Emily to kick us off for an impactful February together.
Thank you all. And thank you all again for being here. I just want to take us back to where I left us in the chat with that question of the kind of industry that we want to build together, and read to you some of the reflections that you all shared. You are thinking about a place where all voices are heard, where workers have access to dignified jobs, where we are embracing restorative justice, where we empower others and everyone who is involved, the employees, the members of our community. We're seeking a fashion industry that's genuine and authentic, a fashion industry that does no harm, that provides educational and professional opportunity, one that fairly compensates the women who make our clothes through a living wage, one that prioritizes the well-being of people working in the industry and treats them with dignity and respect. Incredible reflections from this wonderful community, and I think a great way to sum up our call today, as well as the work that we all do here at Remake. So in the month ahead, if you are excited to read the report, if you are ready to get involved in Remake programming, if you want to support the mission-oriented work that we do by becoming a Remake gem, if you want to join the Remake Fashion Certificate, we invite you to do that. Come hang out with us on the Remake Ambassador Slack channel, where we are chatting every day. And we look forward to building that future that we all want to work in for fashion to come. So everyone have a wonderful month ahead. Thanks for spending your morning, afternoon, evening with us. Take care all. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.